Hello, everybody. How are you? It's me, Messenger Christopher Mohammed X. How are you? Let me see if I can handle this without starting a fire. Okay. I just want to say I'm trying to move ahead here. I know that in the last clip, you're wondering, wait a minute, how does this guy know if he was like hallucinating or something? Well, I know I wasn't hallucinating. And I know that I wasn't hallucinating. And the reason why I cried is because the angels are with me now. That's why I cry. Because I'm in the presence of them, and as I'm telling you my story, it's the first time I realized that I did what I had done. So that's why I cry. But to move on, I want to tell you about a story that took place when I was a kid. It's called The Green Monster. It didn't happen. I don't have time to get into it. Check it out. The Green Monster of New Kensington, Pennsylvania. I told my mother that I found a monster, and the only reason I told her that I found this monster is because a brand new coat she had just bought me. This woman, who was born in Birmingham, Alabama, by the way, this beautiful woman who was born in Birmingham, and a good story actually is about to come on. It's called 1963, the year that changed everything. And my mother, well, anyways, to get back to my story, she bought me a brand new coat. And this brand new coat, I just got algae all over it. Because I instead of going to my grandmother's house, my foster grandmother, you might want to call it, her husband's mother, she did a lot to take care of us, my brothers, my sister. She was such a beautiful woman. This is Stella Watkins. Amazing, amazing woman. She reminded me of James Brown. Looked just like him. A female virgin. Beautiful. And she was such a hard worker. She tried to let me know that somebody cared for me. She left me property in Hazelhurst, Georgia. In Hazelhurst, there are Route 87 goes right through Hazelhurst, and on both sides of the road, my family owned miles and miles of property there. If I'm not mistaken. Of course, I was a child when the last time I was there, and we had a huge, we have lakes on the land. Anyways, big ups to Mrs. Watkins, although she's already back into the Matrix in another position.
It was the whole atmosphere at the time.
My mother
had been for like 50 years.
was 17 when 19 at this time. She had just moved to Pennsylvania at about 20-something years old, but this is where she was born.
They had a counter,
and she didn't have me
where the whites
until
could sit up there and and eat. And
I think 25. I can't remember. 25,
in the basement.
I was born in Sarasota, Florida, because my mother, as I told you before, her husband tried to kill me in her stomach when he, unbeknownst to my mother, found out that my mother met my father. As a result of his infidelity to another, with another woman, my mother found out. She decided she was going to marry, or hook up with my dad, and here I am, Christopher. And her name is Mary.
As we're all black people.
She's the new patron saint, I guess you could say.
It wasn't because they didn't have the money to pay.
Let's get into this.
It was because black people were not allowed to be in the hospital rooms. So I had so many wonderful memories of her. But what I remember most was sitting in that chair by her bed in the basement of the hospital. And I wondered as I got older, why were we relegated to the basement?
I can remember one night my brother and I were coming from the 8th Avenue Theater, and it was about 11 o'clock, and the police stopped us. And we were young, maybe 12 and 13, and they stopped us and searched us and kicked us. And I always wondered, why did they kick us? Because we were no trouble. We didn't resist. We did everything they told us to do. But they kicked us and told us to get home. And that always stuck in my mind, because I always wondered, later I began to think, how would they feel if someone had done their child that way? Because we were just children. We were already afraid of them when they stopped us.
There was always police around in that area, so that was nothing unusual for us to see the policemen.
That was just the atmosphere. They would call you to the car and roll the window up on your head, put your head in here. And then when you put your head in there, they roll the window up, ask you questions about maybe something that had happened in the community, if you knew such and such a person. It was just the whole atmosphere at that time was oppressive.
We were born into that type of living. You were born saying that it was white had privileges, so you believed that.
And I realized when you could go into stores like Bizet's and Loveman's and buy clothes, but you couldn't try them on if you were black. I had an issue with that. So I knew something had to be done about it, but didn't know what. And then when I heard about the movement, I figured this is something that I can do to make things different.
The children brought about the 1964 Civil Rights Act that Lyndon Johnson signed. The children brought about the 65 Voting Act of Selma. Without Birmingham and the children, there could not have been a Selma and the Voting Act of 65. Know your history. Just read about it. Talk to people before we die. I think our baby boomers were just outstanding because they were ordinary people who did extraordinary things.
Extraordinary things. Unbelievable thing. All passenger stations in the state operated by any motor transportation company shall have separate waiting rooms or space and separate ticket, blah, 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 for blacks.
1963. It was a year that started much like any other year in Alabama. Temperatures were cold, and on New Year's Day,
Oklahoma goes down fighting as Alabama winds up on top 17-0.
But for some Alabamians, the year seemed to promise more of the same.
Bombing had become a way of life in Birmingham. Routinely, black homes were bombed. As kids, we could be sitting on our porch in the evening, on our front porch in the evening, and we would hear that sound in the background. It always felt like the earth shook. Boom. Somewhere in the background, you'd hear this boom, but then you'd always hear you feel something that felt like the earth moved or shook. And then we knew, as young people, we had really come to know that sound. We knew what it was when we heard it. So we knew within a few minutes the phone would ring. And when the phone rang, we knew that there would be someone on the other end saying they just bombed the A.G. Astor Motel, or they just bombed the home of A.D. King or Fred Shuttlesworth.
The new governor, George Wallace, after soundly defeating moderate attorney Ryan DeGraffenreid in a runoff, would set the tone for the coming year.
George actually ran the first time against John Patterson.
He lost, and the reason why he lost was because of And he wasn't a die-hard in the wood racist. The guy.
Folks, real quick, let's just pause for a moment. There are a couple things I want you to pay very close attention to. First thing, my mother's name is Mary Lynn Liviano. My mother was born in 1963, 52, if I'm not mistaken. At the age of 6 years old, about 10 years prior to this political event that's on television, my mother was sent from Birmingham, Alabama, up north to Ronco, Pennsylvania, where her father, who met her mother, obviously, in his nomadic journeys. I imagine in Alabama. My mother is my mother, you could say, yeah, my mother was called, we're not going to worry about that. Don't worry about it. As long as it went out, that's fine. My mother was, for the most part, she dealt with, oh boy, I'm not worried about hits, publicity. I don't want money. I'm giving you your life back. And why should it cost you anything? All right. Okay, so let's go on. My mother, of course, she was bullied a lot when she was a child. She was called white girl a lot because her mother was German, Irish. If I'm not mistaken, more Irish than German. So this is where my, of course, mixed genome comes into play. I'm also part Mexican, according to my, ancestry. Okay, then that would be on my dad's side, my father's side. So I want to proceed and make sure that I don't have fire going. I don't. Good. This is about to get heavy. All right, I'll go ahead and finish telling you so we can get through with this. Being bullied, my mother, she was caught in between two storms. One storm came from the black side, and the other storm came from the white side. She didn't know where to fit in. A lot of young women today find themselves as a result of, the act of miscegenation between black men and white women. And of course, I also have, I'm part European, but I also have a mixed child too. Believe it or not, he's 17. Deontay, I love you dearly, my child. And Jessica, thank you for the beautiful child. And hello to your whole family. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and proceed. My mother was able to escape all of the issues that were building up in the South. And of course, I remember being in Augusta, Georgia when I was a child. And, not Augusta, Georgia, I'm sorry. That would be the area that my grandmother would own. We had a cousin who was hung from a tree by the Ku Klux Klan. in front of a church that our family had built. It was pretty traumatic in the South at that time. But I wanted to just bring these few things to your awareness. Her name's Mary. My name's Christopher. Shall we proceed? By the way, to any of you individuals who understand the power of the mind, if you work for the Queen, if you work for the United States government, my birth date is 12/12/1969. If you check out my birth chart, you'll find out who I am. I'm the old soul. I'm the old soul that you'll find in astrology, in those wonderful books that exist. So just wanted to drop that one on you before I go on. Let's go. We're wasting time.
I'm
going to get out of the way for a little bit.
That was running against him, Ryan DeGraffenreid. We did about 5 or 6 statewide telecasts, and I was his announcer. And I was not too sure I would be accepted by the governor after I'd worked so closely with Ryan DeGraffenreid. He ran against him. They were in a runoff, by the way. But I think Ryan sort of ran out of money for the runoff, and Governor Wallace got elected.
George, as a matter of fact, had a meeting and was invited to and sat with A.G. Gadsden and Arthur Hughes and others here in the Negro community at that time. George Wallace did. But the judge, after 4 years, boy, he says, never again. You'll never out-nigger me again.
He made it very clear in his inauguration about states' rights. So he left no doubt as to where he stood relative to segregation. He ran on that platform. He was inaugurated in that platform, and he governed on that platform. He was very much the segregationist when he took office.
In the name of the greatest people that have ever trod this earth, I draw the line in the dust and toss the politics before the feet of tyranny, and I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
The conductor of each passenger train is authorized and required to assign each passenger to the car or the division of the car when it is divided by a partition designated for the race to which such passengers belong. Alabama Statute 1963. Theophilus Eugene Bull Connor. Brother Connor.
You know, those Kennedys up there in Washington, that little old Bobby Sox and his brother, the president, they'd give anything in the world.
Get him, boy.
If we had some trouble. If we don't have any trouble, we can beat them at your own game.
Well, Bull Connor was a totally, completely ignorant. And the only thing he had to hang his head on was discrimination.
Bull Connor probably had some connections to the KKK. Bull Connor wasn't the brightest guy out there.
I knew Bull when he would call games at Rickwood Field. He would be up there in the broadcast booth. Negroes could go to Rickwood Field. But there was a little place way out there in the right field called the bleachers. Way out there. Way in the back door, in the back gate, we go in this room, this spot in there. And I'm going to give you an example of Bull Connor's broadcast. There it is in the second inning, and there they are. And there's Woodrow Poe steps to my back. And there the wind up, and there comes a page, and here comes Rock. And there Woodrow Poe, he's digging in again, and here comes in ball one. And here it comes again, the picture winding up, here comes who's found how Walt Dropo's dug in there, and Walt Dropo's got a hump in him, and there he is, there comes the picture, and there it goes, and there it goes, there it goes, there it goes, there it goes, it's landing in the coal bin. And what he was referring to, the coal bin, was black hole, what it looked like coal, and so it's in the coal. Now, that was Eugene Bull Connor.
He played right into type. I mean, the way he acted, the way he, what he said, what he did.
You can never whip these boys if you don't keep you and them separate.
I think we had a meeting out at Holt High School, I guess White Citizens Council.
You've got to keep the white and the black separate. Just like you got to keep them in school.
And he was,
You've got to keep the whites and the blacks separate, he said.
He said, what's causing all the trouble around here is those blanket and black newsmen back there.
He was just an ignorant bully.
An ignorant bully. Now, folks, what I'd like to ask you is, you know, if you look at these blacks, and of course I'm also a black, you know, what could they have done to have to go through this shit, huh? You know, when I decided I wanted to commit suicide, and that part of this segment of the show's coming up, this was one of the questions that just, it ruined my every thought when the government decided, PennDOT decided they were going to take my license for 7 years after I had done all the time that I was asked to do as a result of the crime I did. And, you know, I said to God, I said to whoever created us, and I'll tell you that story very shortly, you know, why would you do this to these people? You know, I've been around these people all my life. I cried. And I screamed out to whatever created me at the time I was going to commit suicide. And I was committing suicide. And I get to that later. But I'm just inserting this right here. Because I could not understand why in the hell this was going on. Anyways, let's move on. We got a few more minutes in this clip. It shall be unlawful to conduct a restaurant or other place for the serving of food in the city, at which white and colored people are served in the same room, unless such white and colored persons are effectually separated by a solid partition extending from the floor upward to a distance of 7 feet or higher, unless
racial tensions in 1961 and 62.
You had to be 5 feet apart to 7 feet apart. Your tables.
An iconic photo of a burning bus became a symbol seen around the world.
1963, folks.
The beating of freedom riders.
My mother had just prior to
city and state politicians
the unbelievable church burnings there, her mother and her father had decided that she needed to get out of Alabama, and they moved up here to Ronco, Pennsylvania. And the home, of course, is still owned there. My grandfather, an amazing man. Mr. Knox, I love you. Although you're back in the Matrix.
A 3-member city commission, and they decided that it would be best to go to a mayor-council form of government.
Later in the year, Birmingham citizens voted to change that commission. But Haynes and fellow commissioners would not go without a legal fight.
So at one time, what you had was, you had both a city commission and a mayor-council form of government. You had 2 forms of government in 1963.
Just in case, Bull Connor would also run for mayor in the upcoming election. In February, the Alabama Supreme Court lets the upcoming election stand.
Colored persons may not address white persons by their given names. They must always use the titles of respect. That is, Mr., Miss, Sir, or Ma'am. Whites must use courtesy, and it's okay that you don't know the rest. You do already understand the rest.
In nearby Georgia, the SCLC and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. meet to discuss a plan called Project C.
It was mostly a local movement.
And of course, my grandmother lived not too far away from this event here.
So you want to bring the heavy hitters in. Dr. King was a heavy hitter, and April was when he first began the focal point of the
Dr.
Reverend focal point of the
Martin Luther King,
what was happening
of course.
in Birmingham.
Well, everyone's important here.
Key figure.
Everyone is a key figure on this magnetic chessboard we call life.
Reverend Shuttlesworth, the credit that he did.
And I'll explain that metaphor very shortly.
Was on the ground. He was taking the beatings. He was there every day. He was at the meetings. He was hospitalized. He galvanized the community. He helped enroll children when the schools were integrated. Reverend Shuttlesworth was the key figure in the Birmingham movement.
March 5th, former Alabama Lieutenant Governor Albert Boutwell and Bull Connor are set for a runoff after the election fails to determine a winner. Sunday, March 24th, another bombing at a private home. 2 people are injured. Damage reaches 2 city blocks. April 2nd, Albert Boutwell is elected along with a 9-man council. Legal challenges still exist, leaving the city with 2 mayors, Boutwell and Haynes.
They decided that they would co-rule Birmingham.
Bull Connor would remain in charge of the police and fire departments. April 3rd, sit-ins would begin at downtown Birmingham lunch counters.
You had the boycotts, you had the selective buying campaigns, protesters coming downtown.
They were picking all the stores around. Because when you go in the Lum, you just go down Nick Rose ground, Nick was ground in the basement.
Why can't I ride that train at the zoo? Why can't I see a duck at the park? Why can't I use the bathroom at Newberry's? Why is everything separate? Why am I at the back of the bus?